Invited to the yard site of the Baba Sali, which who knew in Los Angeles there was such a following. You enter into this room off of Fairfax, and you look around, you didn't realize where have these people been in Los Angeles. And I had the same feeling tonight, entering into this event in honor of the Shpoler Zaide, looking around, wondering where has this been all my life. One of the best, they have these lists, the best kept secrets in LA. So they list all the restaurants, they list all the different places to go to. But this is definitely one of the best kept secrets in Los Angeles. This amazing evening in honor of the Shpoler Zaide. I actually heard about it before, only because I had discussed a few years ago when I did the history of Orthodox Los Angeles. I was able to interview Rabbi Grumman about some of the history of LA. And I looked at my notes from then. I looked at them today. And I saw that Rabbi Grumman led with the following historical anecdote. When we got to his biography, I was asking him about him. Rabbi Grumman said, "Let me start by saying I'm a descendant of the Shpoler Zaide." So that connection already has planted roots here in Los Angeles. And sometimes I guess it helps to hear from somebody who's outside the inner circle. Lahavdil, much like the way de Tocqueville, the Frenchman, studied American history and criticized it, looking at it from the outside in, you get a different perspective. I, in a sense, looking at it as not a Shpoler relative, coming from the outside, I ask for your mechila ahead of time. If I'm saying something that's pashut, we talk about this every day in Shpoler circles. I can't believe he's going there. So I don't know what's common Shpoler stories or not, but I'll give you what I have for you. There's a question of whether or not the Maharal had a golem. It's a question of whether or not the Maharal had a golem. And the one who wrote extensively about it was Rav Yudel Rosenberg. Rav Yudel Rosenberg was a great Rav, a Talmud Chacham, wrote Shalos and Shuvas Sfarim. You go on HebrewBooks.org, you see 30 Sfarim from Rav Yudel Rosenberg. But Rav Yudel Rosenberg also has 3 volumes in Yiddish on the Shpoler Zaide. It was condensed and translated into Hebrew in 1968. Rav Yudel Rosenberg was the one who wrote extensively about it. When it came out from the family that many of the books he wrote, Rav Yudel Rosenberg, I have even the cover page of one of his Sfarim, the Tiferes Maharal, Rav Aryeh Leib, the Shpoler Zaide, not to be confused with Tiferes Maharal, right? He says the Sefer der Shpoler Zaide. And he says, why am I putting this out? People ask me after I put out a series of Shalos and Shuvas Sfarim. Now I'm writing stories. What am I putting it out? We find our time now. Sha'af ha'avir. Sha'af ha'avir moral ma'asfarim achilonim v'chitzunim sheholchem adfisim in yom yom. The stories, the moral story, even the moral stories. The fables, which used to be the clean stuff we could read out there, even the moral stories are now bankrupt and corrupt. And we need to combat that with great stories. We need to combat that with stuff that'll, as Rabbi Nachman of Breslov says, stuff that, people tell stories to put people to bed. Jews tell stories to wake people up. We need stories to wake our children up. And he says, that's why I'm putting out this Sefer. So in this Sefer, which is a beautiful Sefer, you can find it actually not on HebrewBooks.org. You can find it in Otzer HaChachma if you want to see the 1968 version of the Hebrew Sefer. And he has beautiful stories in there, beautiful renditions of classic stories. And I want to lead with a story that he has in this book and start the conversation from there. By the way, did you know that there is a DNA marker? I don't know if this is mentioned. Again, I feel insecure. Everything might be plush and stuff here. But if someone came in to swipe for DNA from everybody here, they would find, they have tracked already, one guy, a big Kohen, who was in the Kohen marker study, where they were tracking a common DNA marker for Kohanim, happened to also be a descendant of the Shpoler Zaide. So he was interested in seeing whether the Shpoler relatives have a common DNA marker, and he studied it extensively. So by the way, there's a scientific report on the Shpoler gene. You know this. If you look online, you can see there's a study on the Shpoler gene that was done. There was one like it done also for the Noam Elimelech and Rav Levi Yitzchak Berditchev. That's as far as I know, where specific rabbinic links were made among Rabbanim. So everyone here tonight believes the same way, basically. So let's share a little bit of that Torah. So I want to pick up where Rabbi Grumman left off, right after the pauper quote unquote, who found him and gave him the bracha, as was the minhag in the community, and said from now on, based on that beautiful Dvar Torah of the Baal Shem Tov, of Avram Zaken Bo B'Yamim, the idea of he's going to be called the Zaide. From now on, he's going to be called the Zaide. Now, this child started to get older. Child was growing up, and as the way Rabbi Rosenberg writes it, Vayigdal hayeled v'yigamol v'yelechol, he got older, and he was a sharp kid. And at a very young age, his father taught him Tanakh Bal Peh. Before they touched Mishnah and Gemara, he made sure he learned Talmud Bal Peh. He was known as an Eloi Mafur, a wondrous Eloi, a genius. What happened was tragedy struck. The Shpoler Zaide's mother passed away at a young age. He was very close with his mother. And the way Rabbi Rosenberg tells it is that after she passed, the Avirah in the house wasn't the same. It wasn't the same. Now, we don't know why things happen, but we do know that because this happened, his father understood that he can't teach his son the same way. He's getting married to a second wife. He needs to send him out to learn by somebody else. Because of this incident, he ended up learning by Rav Pinchas Koritzer. Who's Rav Pinchas Koritzer? So the founder of Chassidus, obviously the Baal Shem Tov, Rav Pinchas Koritzer, was known, if you go through his Sfarim, if you do a word search, the word that comes up the most is emes, is truth. Rav Pinchas Koritzer is truth. If you want a quick story, Rav Pinchas Koritzer, great, my favorite Pinchas Koritzer story. Rav Pinchas Koritzer, one of the greatest, right? The Baal Shem Tov had 3 top Talmidim, I don't know how you rank them. 3 of my, the ones that I love looking at. Rav Pinchas Koritzer, you had the Toldos Yaakov Yosef, you had also, of course, the Mezritcher Maggid, from which Futsumai Yosef. Everything comes out from underneath him. But let's start with the Rav Pinchas Koritzer. So Rav Pinchas Koritzer, people used to come from near and far, time's going so fast. Rav Pinchas Koritzer, people used to go from near and far to see him. And he couldn't learn anymore. How can you get learning done when people are seeing you all day? And he loved emes. He loved the truth. He wanted to see Torah. Torah's emes. So what he did was he asked Hashem and he davened to Hashem, please, no more guests. Let me be. I need to focus. Zaide goes there. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mekayim. God says no problem. They left him alone. He learned beautifully. He's sitting till late hours of the night, barely slept. He's dancing in his mind while learning the Torah. Comes Sukkot, and he sits that night. He learned everything with Sukkot. He knew every vort there was to tell. He opens up his siddur to invite the holy Ushpisen into his sukkah. Every year Avram joins him. Yitzchak joins him. The Avos join him in his sukkah. Yosef comes. No one's coming. What's going on here? I don't feel anything. He's trying again. Nobody's coming. He goes, what's going on this Sukkot? And he realizes that's because he davened to Hashem that no guest should come to him, no one should disturb him. It was his own making, and he pleaded and he cried and said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I never want to give up my holy guests. And from then on, Rav Pinchas Koritzer had lines outside of his home, outside of his door. People came to see him. But in the downtime that he had, he taught the Shpoler Zaide. And boy, did they learn together, the two of them. The things that must have gone on in that room, what we would pay. People, I always ask this question when I meet Talmidei Chachamim. I love it. By the way, when you meet a gadol, this is a side note, when you meet a gadol, you have to have a question ready, right? Because otherwise you'll stand and stare at each other for 10 minutes. You have to have a different question ready too. So the question I like asking gadolim when I see them, they think I'm crazy at first, but it's worth it for the answer. If you can go back in time to spend one moment in time with one gadol, where would you go? Where would you be? Where would you spend with? By the way, the winning thing so far is I keep getting Rabbi Akiva. I always get Rabbi Akiva for some reason. But I would love to go back. Imagine to go back in that room by the Shpoler Zaide and Rav Pinchas Koritzer when the two of them are learning together, going through sugyas. Can you imagine what must have been in that room? Who knows what would have been in that room? So he's learning by Rav Pinchas Koritzer, and Rav Pinchas Koritzer says, now it's time for you to meet somebody special. It's time for you to go meet the Baal Shem Tov, the holy Baal Shem Tov. And from all the stories he heard, Rav Pinchas Koritzer was so nervous. He was so nervous. He heard how holy the Baal Shem Tov was, who was a flash of light that really mamish came out of nowhere. And he went to go see him, and the way the story goes, he's holding on to the arm of the Shpoler, of the Rav Pinchas Koritzer, bracing himself. And the moment he sees the Baal Shem Tov, he looks and he passes out and he faints. He standing over him. A few minutes later, he comes to. He hears the word Zaide, Zaide. It's the Baal Shem Tov waking him up. Baal Shem Tov waking him up, and he says, "I have great things planned for you in your future. You need to get up. You need to be stronger than this." He says, "I want you to leave your home. He gives him, after this, they met many times over afterwards, and later on he tells him, I'm going to want you to leave your home. I'm going to want you to step out and go, and you're going to have to travel. The only way you're going to become strong is by traveling. Why? Because in order to become a true tzaddik, you have to lose it all so that you can build it back up. You have to be broken down. The building has to come down so you can build it up the right way. I want you to go travel. And he says to him, I know what you're thinking right now. You're nervous about your family. You're nervous how you're going to support your father-in-law. What happened was he was a shochet also. The Shpoler Zaide was a shochet for time being. And how are you going to support your father-in-law when you're on the road? So he said, I'm going to give you a bracha. What you're going to do is like this. You're going to trust me. You're going to sell your business, your father-in-law's business, to the third shochet that walks into town. The third shochet that walks into town is going to be a master. And you sell it to him on condition that you keep a certain percentage. That percentage will more than support your family and your father-in-law. That's what happened. He did it, pulled some back, he gave the money, and he found the third shochet was a brilliant Talmud Chacham, a Anav, a Yer Shemayim. He brought him in and he gave him the trade, just as the Baal Shem Tov said. He went on his journeys. As the Baal Shem Tov taught him, Vayelech Lamasav, that Avram Avinu had to go on his journeys. What Masav? Even Masu Habanim. These are the journeys when you build the stones of Judaism, when you're building the framework as you're going step by step, place by place. This is how you build yourself up. Along the way, he was going to meet his third Rebbe. You'll say his fourth Rebbe, his father's one of his Rebbeim, but I mean from the tzaddikim, from the Gedolei Olam, from the founders of Chassidus. He spent time, Rav Pinchas Koritzer. He spent some time, very little, with the Baal Shem Tov. But the one who was going to become his later Rebbe Mufak was the Toldos Yaakov Yosef, Rav Yaakov Yosef of Polonoi, who himself, we could do hours on the Toldos Yaakov Yosef, brilliant and unbelievable. Lahavdil, there was a book that came out a while ago, Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. In there he says that anything successful, you could trace it back to 3 steps. It's got to have a maven, it's got to have a salesman, and it's got to have a connector. So the mashal that he gives in the book is this: the shoes, the hush puppies. They came back because there was a maven who knew how to get it into each market. There's a networker who knows how to schmooze, and they also ended up having the sale, the connector, the maven, connector, and sales. And you have to know how to sell the item. So I wanted to take that and apply that to what the Shpoler Zaide had, so you understand what he became. The Shpoler Zaide mamish had all 3 around him. Because the Baal Shem Tov was that flash of light that came into the world when everybody was mamish giving up. They had nothing anymore. They were broken after Shabtai Tzvi. The Vad Arba Artzos was disbanded, so the education, they couldn't talk between the communities and share resources. After the Chmelniki pogroms, Jews were so devastated. They had nothing. Poverty was at an all-time high for the Jewish people. And the Baal Shem Tov came at the perfect time. He was a flash of light. Rabbi Pinchas Koritzer was a pass-through station for many of the great tzaddikim underneath the Baal Shem Tov, contemporaries of the Mezritcher Maggid. He was your connector. The Toldos Yaakov Yosef was your maven. He was the first one to put down in writing the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov. He was the first of the Hasidic leadership to publish. He was the maven. So Shpoler Zaide has these 3 around him. It's an amazing beginning for him. And that's how he begins his journey, which these 3 great Rebbes around him, giving him support, giving him strength. It's no wonder the Shpoler Zaide became such an awesome figure. I wanted to touch in one other area here. And a few years ago, or last year I think already, I did imaginary debates, Shavuos night. Debates that we don't know whether they happened, or if they happened, or how they went down, but we can reconstruct them based on what we know about the Rabbanim. So for example, I did Satmar Rav and Rav Kook in a conversation. As far as we know, they never met each other. I don't know what they'd say to each other if they were in the same room. How it would go. I did the Lubavitcher Rebbe and Rav Shach. We did a few of these. You have to keep people up Shavuos night. It's late. The cheesecake runs out after a while. So we did also Rabbi Nachman and the Shpoler Zaide. And at the end of it, I got a lot of feedback and updated it and so on and so forth. And I just want to share with you a couple thoughts on the matter. Because again, I'm talking to the family, so the family's already holding on all this. I'm just reminding some of the things the families tend to forget. Rabbi Nachman was different. There's no doubt about it. Rabbi Nachman, I'll give you an illustration. Rabbi Nachman has an amazing story called The Lost Princess. So what Rabbi Nachman did is he realized his students aren't understanding his Kabbalah. So he stuck the Kabbalah in the stories, so that one day, when they get a chance to understand and grasp Kabbalah, you could then go back and uncover the stories and understand what it means. Rav Aryeh Kaplan has a running Kabbalistic parish on the stories of the Rabbi Nachman. So one of his greatest stories is Zaide, the Lost Princess. It's unbelievable. The Lost Princess is about a king who gets upset with the daughter, and the next morning she's gone. He can't find her. And he sends his Sheni Lamelech, his second in command, his viceroy, to go find her. What's the Nimshal? Mistama, the lost Melech, is us, the lost passion in Judaism, the lost Kavanah, the lost ability for Lishma. We don't feel it anymore, and we have to rediscover it. After wandering and wandering, looking for the princess in an amazing story, the Sheni Lamelech realizes, I see a little, he's about to give up, he's on the floor crying, and he sees a little pathway, a shvil min atzad, a pathway to the side. Rabbi Nassan, the Talmud of Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, says that path to the side is the path of Rabbi Nachman. It was different. A lot of people weren't comfortable with it. They didn't understand it. It didn't make sense in its time. By the way, you open up Rabbi Nachman's Sefer now, and you think everyone in the self-help aisle at a bookstore stole from Rabbi Nachman 300 years ago. Rabbi Nachman was born early. That was the problem. Some people are born too early. Rabbi Nachman, the world wasn't ready yet. And Rabbi Nachman carved out a shvil min atzad, a path to the side. So, it was tough for people to accept. That could be the source of a perceived dispute. One story that goes around is that Rabbi Nachman was known to look at you and see whether you were real or fake. I once went to the Bluzhev Rebbe in his later years, and I went to the Bluzhev Rebbe with a big tzaddik friend of mine. I don't know if the tzaddik looked like a tzaddik, Bekesher and the whole 9 yards, and I went to him, and the Bluzhever's pointing. I walk in, I'm with my kippah sruga at the time. I'm walking in, the Bluzhever looks at me and says, "Shay, it's out!" And I felt so bad here as I am because my kippah's knit. I have to get it. This is not what happens when you get greeted by the Shpoler family. So I start to turn. He says in Yiddish, "Not you, not you. The other man, she's not wearing tzitzis, who pretends that he's frum. He pretends that he's the frum one over here in the group and standing in front of me." That's what happens in the visit when I have the Bluzhev Rebbe. It was an unbelievable moment. And I don't know how he knew the guy wasn't wearing anything on the tzitzis, and he started crying, and it was a whole confessional for the next 20 minutes about how he's trying and he lost his way. It was unbelievable. So, anyways, how did I get to? So the Rebbe, Rabbi Nachman, was known to look at people and tell everything about them beforehand. Right? Some Rebbes do such a thing. I had that with the. I gotta do it. How much longer do we have in a normal? No, it was supposed to be. I don't want as you want. No. Oh. Okay. I once went to Kalavar Rebbe, and the Kalavar Rebbe, I was in high school, senior, and I shook his hand, and he froze. And I remember seeing the beautiful LA sky that day. He was staying in LA, and his hand froze, and he's staring at me. And I know he's one of those Rebbes who tells you everything about you. And he's just freezing, looking at me for 4 minutes. I'm so nervous, thinking he knows everything. Found out what I did to the teacher's car. I'm finished. It's over. All of a sudden, he says the most beautiful Dvar Torah ever. Shal nalecha me'al raglecha ki amokum asher b'kavos kosher. Shal nalecha. As I start taking off my shoes. He's telling me I'm in his presence. He says, stop taking off your shoes. He goes, no, shal nalecha. Remove the locks. And nal in Hebrew, linol tedelet is a lock. Remove the shackles from your feet. If you realize ki amakom asher ata omer alav, if you realize the place where you stand is Admas Kodesh, is holy ground, wherever you are, you're free, no matter where you are. Shal nalecha. I saw that written later on from the Chafetz Chaim as well. So it's a beautiful Bar Torah, both in Chassidus and by the Litvish as well, have the same idea. Okay. So Rabbi Nachman was the same. He would look at you and be able to tell things about you. And one time they asked the Chazan to go up for Ne'ilah, and Rabbi Nachman looked at him and says, definitely not him. And it was a big embarrassment, and it started a whole hoopla. Some want to say that's the theory as to the source of the machlokes between them, that Rabbi Nachman would do this on occasion to people, and it's devastating. How does he know? And some say that was the source of the dispute. But recently, one of the Rebbes that I look up to, one of the, in the deeper teachings of the Torah that I love, is Ravitcher Meyer Morgenstern. Ravitcher Meyer Morgenstern is the Rebbe of the children of the Rebbes. When the Hasidic Rebbes have kids, they send them to Ravitcher Meyer to teach them his Seuda and Kavanos. And right, you ever wonder where the Hasidic Rebbe's kids learn? Where do they get the training? Where do they go? There's no website. There's no, right? You can't download an app. Where do they go to get this teaching from? So a lot of them sent to Ravitcher Meyer Morgenstern in Yerushalayim to go receive from him. So Rabbi Meyer Morgenstern has the following piece when he talks about machlokes in general, and he split it up over many of his svarim. What?
Is it open to the public?
You what? To go there? When you go to him, you're not going to get that lesson. He gives a shiur every day after mincha at 8:10.
He comes to oil. He comes to oil. Summertime.
He goes to the oil. There's a picture of him in the oil online with Mordechai Ben David. They're by the oil. That's right. He goes 8:10.
You don't have to go to him. You go to oil.
8:10 p.m. every night is Rashash. He teaches teachings in the Rashash. Now, so he says like this. He has a whole essay on machlokes, and this is what he writes. I just collected some of his stuff together on it because he has a lot. He says like this. Anyone who says that the Shpoler Zaide opposed Rabbi Nachman is a fool. And then he writes, and I'll say it again. Anyone who says they opposed each other in truth is a fool. I don't know what he means by that, because a lot of people document that there was this difference with this. But he said, if you think there was really machlokes behind it, then you're totally wrong. And he says, let me explain a little deeper. He says, I said once to my Talmidim on Purim that when Mashiach comes, it's going to be revealed that the wedding ring of redemption is going to be made from the apparent dispute between the Shpoler Zaide and Rabbi Nachman. And they're going to dance and laugh from that wedding ring. He says, where do we have such an idea? He says, the Koshnitzer Magid says the following, right? It says, V'zeidim tabata, right? That was in the Shiras Hayam. You're going to sink the Zaidim tabata. You're going to sink the intentional sinners. Now, what does that mean? That HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to take the Zaidim, the Zdonos, the intentional sins of the children of Israel, and put it into tabata. They're going to make it into tabat, into a ring. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to turn that into a ring. How? Rabbi Soloveitchik has a beautiful vort on the Gemara at the end of Yuma. The Gemara at the end of Yuma says that when one does tshuva me'ava, his donos, his negative sins, are turned into positives. How is that? What is that? Magic? How does that work? The Bnei Yissaschar, the din of a Rebbe, has a whole beautiful Torah on that. Have you become someone else? God still has that din with him, but you're now somebody else entirely who God has nothing with. But Rabbi Soloveitchik had a different word. Rabbi Soloveitchik said that the energy and the passion that went into Averis, HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes that trajectory. You took it. How'd you become a Baal Tshuva? You took that same energy, that's Rish Lakish with jumping. You took it to do mitzvahs. And that's why Zdonos become schuyos. They become positives. Because you didn't lose your past, you just channeled it in the direction you were destined to channel it. There's another Torah from Rav Soloveitchik where he has how did Baal Tshuvas could talk to their parents. And he says the Baal Tshuva needs to tell their parents when their parents are angry with them and upset that they're rejecting everything. They need to say with love to their parents, you taught me to live with integrity. You taught me to question everything. I get that gene from you. You put that DNA in me. That I have to wake up and wonder whether I'm living truthfully. I only got it from you. And I love you for it, and I'm not rejecting you. It's embracing you. So back to here. So he says, V'zeidim tabasa. And you will sink the zdonos, right? It's going to become a wedding ring. So says the Ravitcha Meyer, I want to apply that over here as well. That when you take that dispute, that people see it as a dispute, tabata, I'm going to make that into the most beautiful wedding ring. When you understand that the Mahalach of Rabbi Nachman and the Shpoler Zaide are both different sides of a circle, you're going to see the most beautiful chasana, the most beautiful wedding ever. He says the machlokes, again, the perceived machlokes between Rabbi Nachman and the Shpoler Zaide is really the combining in the future of the Seudas Lev Yosem with the Shor Habor. With the Shor Habor. The two are going to come colliding together. Mashiach ben David, Mashiach ben Yosef. I don't know which one he intended to be who, but the Rav Itchamai Morgenstern says they're both together and they're both going to clash and come together as one. So I thought about this piece from Mitcher Meyer and I said to myself, where do we see that the Torahs are the same? That the Torahs link together? And with this I mamish close. This is for Rabbi Nachman, and this is for the Shpoler Zaide, showing you the Zaidim Tabasa. What we perceive as a machlokas on our own little level is really just one ring that combines together. The most difficult of the four sons to relate to. We just read in the last week, 2 weeks ago's Parsha, we already saw the hints to the Daled Banim, right? The Arba Banim. One of the most difficult of the four sons to relate to, without a doubt, is the She'ena Yodea Lishol. The Rasha, you get him. He usually has good tinus. He's saying well, but it's coming from anger, it's coming from disdain. Some Rebbe messed him up in school, or this one messed him up, or that he's complaining about something, and we get it. I hear. Now calm down and just sit with the family and enjoy the meal. The Rasha we get. The chacham we get, right? We understand. Not everybody's a tam. They're not following. They're not holding. But they're simple, or however you want to see the tam, or tamimas the Rebbe has, Lavcha Rebbe. Tamimas, simplicity. He's the tzaddik. Now, what's the she'ena yodea lishol? What's the she'ena yodea? I don't get that. What does that mean? So we can imagine this nowadays, the kid at the table who comes with the phone, and their face is on the device the whole dinner. They're not looking up, mindlessly. Jews have constantly, throughout history, been asking questions, challenging each other. This kid is sitting there, he has no kashas. He has nothing's bothering you? God, discuss. Not a question anymore. The last generation had questions, they had good questions, and we had to write books, and we had to address this. I started writing a book with different proofs of God. I wanted to update and renew some of the proofs of God for our generation. And I got one whole chapter in, I was so excited. Then I started to teach teenagers, 11th grade teenagers, at-risk teenagers. And I started from Orthodox family. I started to teach them, and I realized I'm wasting my time. They're not even asking questions. They're just angry at everything. They're giving up. They gave up on themselves. They gave up on everything. I'm waiting to give them a proof of God. Shkoyev. They don't care. There's not even a question anymore. There's not a kasha anymore. It's the most disengaged child of the Seder. He's not even asking questions. You could be sure if there's a rush at the table, he's going to have good kashas for you. The She'en Deishol, nothing. And guess what? The entire Haggadah is actually geared to him. How do we know? Because the pasuk Yud Gimel, Perek Yud Gimel pasuk Ches, on telling your son on that day, is the one that's given without Ki Yishalcha bin Chamachar Lemor, is without a question. It's the response without a question. So the one to tell your son that day is the one that doesn't have a question before it. So here we get to Rabbi Nachman and the Shpoler Zaide. The Jew who doesn't know how to ask seems like nothing is interesting to him. He has nothing to him. But the Torah is telling us you can't give up. At Pesachlo. Open him up. He has what to say. You got to get his attention. Grab his attention. I'm telling you he has what to say. There's some depth in there. He's raw, unformed material, potential, waiting to grow. Rabbi Nachman in Lakutei Maran, Chelek Aleph Simin Lamed says the following, that the father of our nation, Avram, instituted Shachris. The letters stand for, the Chet stands for Chacham, the Resh stands for Rasha, the Tes stands for Tam, and the Shin of Shachris stands for She'eni Yodea Lishol. He's part of the fabric. He's there, mamish, from the beginning. He's always been there. He's always been there. He's just done with the Pshat. He's done with the Pshat. He wants something more. Rabbi Nachman says Pshat is Tipesh. Pshat is Tipesh. He wants something more. And Rabbi Nachman said, he wants to do She'eni Yodea. He wants to do tshuva even for the She'eni Yodea. Lishol means he wants to even daven for. He wants to just join. He wants to feel connected again. It's not about what he's done or not done. Even the She'eni Yodea, what he doesn't know about, he wants to feel connected again. I had a kid who came into my office today. I was so upset at him because he took his phone and he was sending out messages to other kids that weren't nice. It was mean-spirited. And I said to him, what's going on? What's going on? And he broke and opened up about everything that's going on to him. And you realize deep down, they're just looking for connection. They're looking for a way in. Rabbi Nachman said the fact that this Jew doesn't have question is not because he doesn't care or he's apathetic. Because he's asking and looking for something deeper. He's looking for something more. He wants more. At is the feminine. Nekeva, says Rabbi Nachman. At is feminine. He wants a connection. Mother to the feminine. He wants his mother. He wants something deep. A deep relationship. He wants to have that. Says the Shpoler Zaide. It's all one ring. And a beautiful Dvar Torah from the Shpoler Zaide. Says the Shpoler Zaide, we're all looking for a connection. That's the essence of the Seder. It's not about the right answer or the wrong answer. It's that we're trying to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and we're trying to feel something. We're trying to feel a relationship. Why? Because when you come home from Shul on the night of Pesach, the Haggadah says, when the father comes home, right? And the Shpoler Zaide was looking at the classic Hamish Haggadah says, when the father comes home from the night shul on the night of Pesach, he needs to make Kiddush miyad, right away. Why? So the children don't fall asleep. Says the Shpoler Zaide, that's not just stam instructions. That's a vort for life. we're turning to Hashem. We say, Hashem, make the big kiddush right now, because the children are all falling asleep. We're going to lose them. Wake them up now. They need a question. They need to ask. They need to hear you. They need a connection right now, says the Shpoler Zaide. That's mamish the same as Rabbi Nachman. They're just on different sides of the coin. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the ring that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to use ultimately at the end of time. Mirz Hashem, may this chevra keep meeting together for great simchas and great many occasions, and it should be in the memory and the schus of the Shpoler Zaide, and his schus should be a protection for us in this world.
Amen.